Hello and welcome to Gameonysus Weekly, your one-stop shop for video game news, keeping up with the biggest stories so you don't have to. I'm your host, Edwin Garcia, and this week we're talking about drama at Sony, E3's official news, and a whole lot more. E3 2021 is officially happening online. We have some early commitments from companies and some dates. Here's what they said in the press release. They wrote, "It's game on, assists." Okay, the assists I added myself, but they did write it's game on for E3 as the Entertainment Software Association, ESA, officially unveils plans for a reimagined all-virtual E3 2021 that will engage video game fans everywhere. With early commitments from Nintendo, Xbox, Capcom, Konami, Ubisoft, Take-Two Interactive, Warner Brothers, Koch Media, and more to come, E3 2021 will take place June 12th through June 15th. Developers will be showcasing their latest news and games directly to fans all around the world. The ESA will be working with media partners globally to help amplify and make this content available to everyone for free. As far as additional content, there will be additional media and influencer days from June 7th to June 11th. So it sounds like it's similar to the traditional E3 structure where there's stuff happening behind the scenes as far as media and influencers and that kind of coverage, in addition to the big marquee conferences that viewers and fans are more used to seeing and thinking of when they think of what E3 is. Media requirements have yet to be listed for this year's event, but there will be no limit to credentialed media for E3 2021, and approved media will have unique opportunities to connect with exhibitors and sponsors, with more specifics as the event gets closer. Sony and EA are notable companies that will not be partaking in E3 2021. Personally, I'm glad to just get the information about what E3 2021 is or isn't. It's nice to finally have that official and out there, and I'm excited for the event. I mean, I think we've had a lot of different players step into the game news space when it comes to big summer announcements. I feel like everyone's kind of trying to get a piece of that pie. There's also a bit of companies stepping up their own game and kind of deciding to put on their own events and try to get that kind of attention that we're used to seeing from E3. And there's always that question of, well, what does E3 really do? Like, do we need E3? Is E3 washed at this point? We were having those conversations even before the pandemic hit. And for me, I've always been just a huge fan of E3. I grew up watching all those press conferences. I finally got to go to E3 in 2019. And I think there's just something about the brand that is E3 and what it means of everyone coming together and kind of stepping up their presentations. I think so many times we have these conversations on, was this a good state of play? Was this a good Nintendo Direct? What do we think of this, that, or the other? And while E3 presentations don't always blow everybody away, there are plenty of companies that have had weak E3s or sort of lost E3 or didn't come prepared to E3. And we have those conversations too. There's a bit of elevation that comes with E3. Everyone's more on it with their coverage. Everyone's more on it with what they're presenting. And I just feel like I didn't really get that sense from any of the other presentations and events that cropped up in lieu of E3. So in that sense, I am excited for E3, though I do feel like it being in a digital space, which I am glad about from a safety perspective. I do wonder if these press conferences will have the same kind of energy. I personally really would love to see them do something a little bit over the top. Like, I want to see the crazy, unique stuff that E3 normally has, right? The car made of Lego bricks rolling onto the stage, the weird guitar melody ballad, the odd performances for highlighting a random indie game that won't come out for 4 years. I want these sparklers that come with E3 presentations. So I'm hoping that we get a little bit of pizzazz. As far as coverage, I'm not really sure how they're going to approach stuff like interviews and demos. I think we've learned a lot over the last year on how to do exclusive coverage online. But at the same time, it's a little too soon to say how much this will hurt that energy and the kind of content that comes out of those events normally. But there we go. Official E3 news. We got it. Next up, we have some just fantastic reporting from Jason Schreier over at Bloomberg, who writes, Sony's obsession with blockbusters is stirring unrest within PlayStation Empire. And if you're watching on the video version, I won't be scrolling through the article in the same way that I normally do, just because this is an example of a Bloomberg article that is behind a paywall. So I would feel weird, even though I'm going to read through the article, I'd feel weird kind of scrolling through it, since normally it's something you have to pay for. And that being said, let's jump into it. And again, I really encourage y'all to go check out this article and read it in its entirety, because it's super fascinating. I'm going to pull out the most notable snippets benefits of it. Schreier writes, Sony's focus on exclusive blockbusters has come at the expense of niche teams and studios within the PlayStation organization, leading to high turnover and less choice for players. Last week, Sony reorganized a development office in Japan, resulting in mass departures of people who worked on less well-known but acclaimed games such as Gravity Rush and Everybody's Golf. The company has informed developers that it no longer wants to produce smaller games that are only successful in Japan, Bloomberg has reported. The fixation on teams that churn out hits is creating unrest across Sony's portfolio of game studios. Oregon-based Sony Bend, best known for its 2019 open-world action game Days Gone, tried unsuccessfully to pitch a sequel that year, according to people familiar with the proposal. Instead, one team at the studio was assigned to help Naughty Dog with a multiplayer game, while a second group was assigned to work on a new Uncharted game with supervision from Naughty Dog. Some staff, including top leads, were unhappy with this arrangement and left. Ben's developers feared that they might be absorbed into Naughty Dog, and the studio's leadership asked to be taken off the Uncharted project. They got their wish last month and are now working on a new game of their own that will be a part of a brand new franchise. So just sort of pausing here and talking about, what was just said, which is pretty wild. I'm someone that was pro a Days Gone 2, that was kind of expecting a Days Gone 2 to happen. It did feel like, Days Gone is one of the PlayStation Plus games of this month. It did feel like there was support for that IP. So I'm personally a bit surprised to hear that Days Gone 2 was shut down. I actually had expected it to be in development. But as someone that wasn't a fan of Days Gone, I'm not exactly weeping over there not being a Days Gone 2. However, as this article will continue to talk about, it speaks to larger issues with the infrastructure, how it's supporting or not supporting creativity from teams, and the potential issues that can end up stirring up. So that's, to me, the bigger story. And I think, as Jason was tweeting about it, his focus was more on the people and the creative process that goes into these games rather than the specific games that are coming out, or in some cases, not coming out. Michael Mambao, who overtook a direction of the visual arts service group, that team had originally planned on a remake of the first Uncharted game, released by Naughty Dog in 2007. That idea quickly fizzled because it would be expensive and require too much added design work. Instead, the team settled on a remake of Naughty Dog's 2013 hit, The Last of Us. Then, once Mambao's group had established itself, it could go on to remake the first Uncharted game and other titles down the road. Now, just to kind of pull away from directly quoting on the article, one thing that Schreier had written about was the idea was originally to kind of package these as a bundle for PS5. So it'd be like a remade Last of Us 1 and theoretically Last of Us 2. Not sure if that'd be like one SKU or just kind of coming out at the same time, but that was the original idea. That ended up changing when Last of Us 2 needed more work, so they got pulled in to work on helping finish Last of Us 2, and then the roles flipped, with now some Naughty Dog team members helping on the remake, which sort of added complications because now you have people that worked on the original game having an involvement in the remake, which sort of took away from the creative vision they originally had. And the codename for the Last of Us 1 remake was T1X. So by the end of 2020, most of the T1X's team top staff had left, including Mumbauer and the game's director, David Hall. Today, the T1X project remains in development at Naughty Dog with assistance from Sony's visual arts support group. The future of the remainder of Mumbao's team, which has come to be jokingly referred to as Naughty Dog South, remains unclear. So again, game-wise, we have a couple things to pull away from this. One is that maybe there'll be an Uncharted remake at some point, and that there's currently a Last of Us 1 remake in progress. But again, I think the real story here, which Jason also feels this way about the article that he had written, is about the creative direction of these companies. And I had posted a lot about this on Twitter, basically saying that I think there is always a push and pull between money and creative ideas. That's true for giant corporations and that's true for independent creators. Like, I feel that push and pull all the time as someone who is working on building my solo career and my ventures and what I want to do, but also recognizing that I need to figure out how to make money in doing that and figuring out what's the best use of my time while also allowing my creativity and my ideas to flourish. So I do think focusing too much on the money is exactly how you lose the money, and not being willing to take risks or flyers on things is a problem. Now, do I think, Sony is unraveling and this speaks to like really deep-seated issues that will cause the downfall of the company as we know it? Not necessarily, but I do think that it's totally possible down the line we see Sony as washed and look back at stories like this and say, oh, this is kind of what planted these seeds. And again, that's kind of catastrophizing the situation. But I do think being too caught up on the things that made you great can sometimes prevent you from making new things that will make you great, from having like lasting staying power. And I think it's something to definitely be wary of. But yeah, from a creative perspective, I mean, it's sad to see a lot of developers seek employment elsewhere in order to maybe do the work the way they want to do it. And I think, it's just such a tough thing as a creative person working at a big corporation. There's so many benefits and you do get to work with so many talented people, but at the same time, you are part of this big machine that can and will tell you no. And you have to sort of draw those lines for yourself on what you do want to deal with and what you don't want to deal with. I think the general attitude is cause for concern. I do think the fact that the studio said, hey, we want to be pulled off this project, and they were cool with that. Bend is now working on something new is good, because they easily could have been stuck on that project and they weren't. But at the same time, they did lose a lot of people along the way. And, it wasn't like completely perfect, but I think stuff like that does give me hope for Sony moving forward. And before closing out this story, I do want to once again point to something Jason said on Twitter about his own work. He posted, all the headlines based on my article today will focus on the games, but the real story here is the people. The people who tried to start something new at Visual Arts Service Group but couldn't and left. The people who left Bend because of the turbulence there. The people who left Sony Japan, and more. Next, I'd like to point out a report from Gita Jackson over at Waypoint Vice. Being Asian here is terrifying. Overwatch Pro talks about life in the US. Jackson writes, a professional South Korean Overwatch player who plays for the esports team Dallas Fuel has opened up about living in the United States and experiences with racism, saying being Asian here is terrifying. Overwatch League team Dallas Fuel, which is owned by esports organization Team Envy, operates in Texas and signed Lee Sok Lee, who goes by Fearless, in November of last year. According to a representative from Dallas Fuel, all the players practice at Team Envy's headquarters, which is located near downtown Dallas. Personally, I first saw Fearless's clip out from the live stream thanks to SwingChip930 on Twitter, who's actually a manager for Florida Mayhem, which is the Florida Overwatch team. They had written, I don't know if I'm stepping out of line for translating something about what another team's player is experiencing, but here's the full translation of that Fearless clip. Please see what some Overwatch League players and staff are facing as Asians in America. And first, the conversation is just about COVID, and then he goes on to say, being Asian here is terrifying. People keep trying to pick fights with us. Every time they see me, it's like Americans will come up to us, and there's even people who cough on us. They'll deliberately cough on us. They'll cuss us the fuck out while laughing. It's really serious. I think Koreans living overseas should be careful. The racism here is no joke. They'll walk up to us. We don't do anything. They're walking by with their masks on. They'll walk up, take off their masks, then pretend to fucking cough on us. And they're mocking us. How do I say this? Saying things like fucking Chinese at us and just cuss at us. They call us Chinese, then harass us. The racism here is unspeakable. And the clip continues on for about another minute, just breaking down everything that goes down for this player and other players. Jackson continues writing that Team Envy's CEO Mike Raphael went on Twitter to respond to this, saying, we've had players from all over the world come for Team Envy. Everybody is included here. If you're one of the best professional gamers in the world, or one of the best coaches in the world, you should feel like you can represent the city that we represent with pride. For our players to get here and only be here for a couple of months and have to deal with these kind of issues is absurd. Additionally, a spokesperson for Dallas Fuel told Waypoint that Envy employs a full-time, quote, mental health coach for players, and also explained some of the accommodations available for players adjusting to life in the United States. Specifically, for the Fuel this year, the team hired and promoted Helen Jiang to assistant general manager after she had previously helped with interpreting for some players. Helen, who is a Dallas local, has been instrumental in helping players and coaching staff acclimate since arriving in Texas in early March, the spokesperson said. In light of recent events, the organization is working to increase security measures for players, but I cannot provide any specifics at the moment. And I want to include this because I was really moved by Fearless's statements and also deeply upset and disturbed by them. I'm not at all surprised to hear them have those experiences, but it's still disheartening and disappointing. But really, I want to bring it to light because, granted, I think a lot of people who listen to the show, or I hope everyone listening to the show, is, for being vocally and adamantly anti-racist and fighting against bigotry and working to create inclusive spaces in not just games, but in the world. But again, I think it's so important to draw attention to these issues because so many times there are people who act like gaming and the act of making and playing games can just be completely divorced from societal situations. And it just can't. Like, I think this is a great example of the way that, you know, Fearless can't just be a pro Overwatch player. Like, that's not, like, they can't take on and off their race or their identity and just be there for the games. Even if they'd like to, like, they're forced to deal with this kind of stuff all while competing at a high level. And like, it's just really unfortunate. It's not okay. And again, speaks to the anti-Asian hatred that's been really increasing in our country in light of COVID and so many other things, which Jackson also contextualizes at the top of the article. I don't want to act like they didn't provide that contextualization as well. I just, you know, don't want to read through the entirety of the thing because that would be rather long, but I encourage you to check out their reporting on this because, again, it's so important for this kind of thing to get coverage. And I was so glad to see that they had written about this story because I had just seen it on Twitter. So being able to get additional context and have like the coach's statement and Overwatch's statement condemning anti-Asian racism and their statement to Polygon and all of that stuff is so important to bringing the story to light and hopefully working to prevent these things and actively stand against these issues. Moving on to rumors and speculation, I did want to give a quick shout out to the Kojima rumors going on because that was a big topic of conversation this week. So Jeff Grubb over at VentureBeat had written an article, Abandoned for PS5 is not a secret Hideo Kojima game, in which he opens by saying, Kojima Productions is making a new game, but it is not Abandoned for PlayStation 5. And for those who may have missed it, Abandoned is a cinematic horror survival shooter that emulates realistic survival in first-person perspective, set in a massive, detailed, open-world environment. It's going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive, and it's made by Blue Box Games, which there's not a lot of info on Blue Box Games right now, but as Grubb contextualizes, that is just because they've never done a major console release before. Grubb continues by saying, but the biggest piece of evidence I have that Abandon is not a Kojima joint is that Kojima is in talks with Microsoft about publishing his next game, according to a source familiar with the matter. He continues saying, I cannot confirm if Xbox closed the deal yet, but my understanding is that Kojima is the focus of a Microsoft plan to tap into Japanese talent. And Abandon will be out Q4 of 2021, with gameplay reveal coming soon. I'd be a little surprised if this rumor ended up not being true. I feel like Jeff Grubb has historically had a lot of accurate insider information. And man, I can't think of anything more that's going to make people more crazy than Kojima's next game being like a Microsoft joint. Like, it's one of those things where there's been so many conversations on like what does or doesn't feel like it should be a PlayStation game or should be exclusive on PlayStation. There's been a lot of additional frustrations like brewing in certain sectors of the PlayStation community against Microsoft for the admittedly small wins that Microsoft has managed to have. So I hope this is true just from seeing the drama of it, honestly. As well as, you know, I do want good things to happen for Microsoft, and Kojima is someone that creates fascinating work, even if it's not always like necessarily, you know, good. I don't have any opinions on Death Stranding because I actually still have not played it. But yeah, I'm interested about this. Also, it's a shame that it sort of took away from what's going on with Blue Box and what is a PlayStation exclusive game. Like, that kind of sucks for that studio. That was also a little bit of a topic of conversation. But yeah, I did want to, one, highlight that game. And two, mention this little juicy Kojima rumor we got going on. We'll have to see what comes of that, if anything. We talked about things we don't know might be happening. Let's talk about something that we do know is happening, or rather that we know isn't happening, and that's some delays. That's a roundabout way of saying that. Deathloop is delayed, y'all. It is delayed to September 14th out of its May window. Originally, it was supposed to come out next month, but won't be here until fall. And they had this to say about it on Twitter. We've made the decision to delay the launch of Deathloop to September 14th, 2021. We're committed to quality and preserving our team's ambitions for Deathloop while ensuring the health and safety of everyone at Arcane. We'll be using this extra time to accomplish our goal, create a fun, stylish, and mind-bending player experience. We apologize for the extended wait, and thank you all for your passion and excitement. It is the fuel that powers our creativity and our hard work. We can't wait to show you more Deathloop soon. Deathloop was one of the games I was really excited about, so I'm definitely disappointed that, you know, it's going to be later than I had originally planned for in my mind and in my schedule, but I don't necessarily ever feel any type of way about these delays. It has been taking a while to get Deathloop off the ground, which is like cause for concern, but again, I'm never really too down on any level of delay. I love that the company is using language that is like pro its team. Now, of course, delays don't necessarily mean that crunch isn't happening and that we're all actually just going to relax. I mean, a lot of times when it's delayed, it's because it's behind schedule, which is inherently negative. So it's my hope that the team is being treated well and that they're don't feel pressured. But I imagine having deadlines like this are just a different form of pressure. So that's my take on it. You know, I wish the best to the developers. I'm still excited for the game. I am sad that I have to wait a little bit longer, but I'll wait as long as needed and we'll see how it is when it comes out. A quick PSA for some upcoming events. The next Resident Evil showcase is happening on April 15th, 3 p.m. PT. Mark your calendars, put in your planner, come through, and get excited for that game. I am very much looking forward to that game. I can't wait. I'm excited. So I'm interested to see what other things we see at this showcase. Maybe we'll get another demo. Maybe the maiden demo will be available on, across platforms and not just on PlayStation 5. We'll see. I'm looking forward to it. And if you are as well, be sure to be there. April 15th, 3 p.m. PT. Moving on to game events, releases, and updates. PacMan 99 is out now, died for Mario's sins. So that's not actually how it came out, but it is the next game that is available via Nintendo Switch Online. So if you have Nintendo Switch Online, be sure to go ahead and download it, play it, check it out. I've enjoyed it a lot. I think it's pretty awesome. I'm a big PacMan fan, so I've been having fun playing that. I am bummed out that it doesn't once again, explain how to do pretty much anything in the game. It's very Tetris 99 in that sense, or Mario 35, same deal. Very just kind of vague on how things go down. And there is DLC that you can buy where you can do like private matchmaking or have access to different modes. So that's an option too if you get really into it. Again, kind of bummed that's just not all included as part of the free game, but that kind of is what it is. PacMan 99, go check it out. Super Meat Boy Forever is coming to PlayStation 5, PS4, Series X, and Xbox One on April 16th. It's going to be $19.99. I've played a little bit of this on PC already. Very solid platformer, super tight-knit. It is an auto runner. It's one button input. It's pretty good. It came out towards the end of last year, so it was like a December 2019 or, a December 2020 release. What is time? But it just, it doesn't quite have the same pizzazz as Super Meat Boy did. Or, it's just not quite as good, but it is well made. So check that out if that's something that you are interested in. Neo: The World Ends With You arrives on Switch and PS4 on July 27th and will be later this summer for PC. And I guess this kind of falls under Shut Up and Take My Money potentially, but there is a Ghosts, the real-time FMV horror game by Jed Shepard. Posted up on Kickstarter, it is a full motion video game created by Jed Shepard in partnership with Visible Games and Limited Run Games. They are currently at $72,000 at the time of me recording this of their $226,000 goal. And one thing that makes this really unique is it's a real-time live-action game, meaning that it has to be played at 10 p.m. in your local time zone. So it's just like, there's just some weird stuff going on here. I'm excited about it. I'm interested in it. Admittedly, I don't think I'll back it because I've never backed anything on Kickstarter. Like, Kickstarter just makes me like a little bit uneasy. But I wanted to draw attention to this, and I'm a big fan of limited run games as well. So interesting one if you're into this kind of thing. Real-time FMV horror game Ghosts. Moving on to the Shut Up and Take My Money section, there is going to be a licensed yoga mat or exercise mat, whatever you want to call it, for Ring Fit Adventure. And I absolutely need this. I haven't needed anything this much, I think, in my whole life. I'm a big fan of Ring Fit Adventure. I think I've mentioned it a few times on the show. I definitely never shut up about that online. I've been playing the game since it came out. I have still not beaten this game yet. This is the heart. I'm going to be so excited when I finally roll credits on this. But this is such a cool item. It was highlighted by Nintendo Life. Unfortunately, it's only getting released in Japan for now, so you would have to import it if you went ahead and got it. It shows a little bit of like the dimensions and like the width and stuff and just what you can, the details about the product. But it will go on sale July 2nd in Japan and will be about $57 US according to the Amazon listing. I need this thing so much. God, that's such an expensive mat, but here we are. Like this is something I need. Y'all do not understand. It's so cool. And it's in that Ring Fit orange and it says Ring Fit on the bottom. It's just such a cool little product for a super unique game. And lastly, that original Stitch company, the one that makes like the fancy Pokemon shirts that are like, business casual, subtle Pokemon shirts, they're now making aprons. They come in two styles. There's like the apron that you just tie around your waist, and there's the one that you put over your head. And similar to how the shirts are very customizable, you select your style, then you select your pattern, and they're just so cute. Like something about cooking in a little Pokemon apron is just so wholesome. And you get to choose from the 151 Kanto region Pokemon. Some of the patterns are already selling out though, so if you're interested, I suggest you order as soon as possible. Also, they're a bit on the pricier end. They're like $55. I don't even normally wear an apron when I cook. Like, it's not even that real, but I just want, I want this. I want this item. And those are all the stories we have this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you're watching over on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, tap the bell. And if you're listening on podcast services, be sure to subscribe and do a review if possible. It helps me a whole lot. And of course, a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Gameonysus. Your support helps make this show possible. And if you have yet to sign up for Patreon, I encourage you to check out the tiers. We have tiers as low as $1, as high as $25, with a bunch of cool additional rewards, like early access to this podcast. And as always, I will see y'all here next time. Bye.